Good afternoon to those in the East, and good morning to those in Denver, Colorado. Welcome to the 2020 Denver CIO Executive Leadership Summit. I'm Hunter Muller, lead principal of HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today. Thanks so much for joining us. Big shout out to our partners today to make today's summit possible: BetterCloud, RingCentral, T-Mobile for Business, and Zerto. And today's also powered by Appian. Appian is here to simplify what it takes to turn great ideas into powerful business applications that deliver significant value. The Appian Workforce Safety Solution enables organizations to intelligently manage the complexities of returning workers on site while maintaining the privacy and security of employee health information. Real important in these times. Also powered today, SnapLogic. SnapLogic is the world's #1 intelligent integration platform. The AI-powered workflows and self-service integration capabilities make it fast and easy to integrate for organizations to manage all of their application integration, data integration, API management, B2B integration, and data engineering projects on a single scalable platform. SnapLogic has driven digital transformation for customers such as Adobe, AstraZeneca, Box, Bristol Myers Squibb, Emirates, Magellan Health, Schneider Electric, and Wendy's. Big shout out to the Colorado SIM chapter. And we have Stacy Moncrief from the SIM chapter. Stacy, welcome to the program.
Muted there. Yeah. Good morning, Hunter and everyone. I'm the president of the Colorado chapter of SIM. And I also am the Vice President of Technology for Interstate Restoration. We're excited at SIM to be able to partner with Hunter and his whole crew to bring all of this great content to the Colorado IT leader group around the state. We love doing this with Hunter every year, a little bit different this year in times of COVID. But I'm excited for everyone to be able to network and learn and grow today. So thanks again, Hunter, for partnering with SIM to do this.
Hey, great. We love the partnership, and definitely check out the Colorado SIM chapter. It's definitely to network with the movers and shakers in the Denver, Colorado area. Thanks. And next up, do we have Mark Taylor? Mark, you want to say hello from SIM International?
Hey, Hunter, how are you? Great to see you again, and thank you again for all your investment in the community. Stacy and the team in Colorado have built a community and have got a lot of things lined up for the fall. So I hope those of you that are a part of the Colorado area will connect with Stacy and the leadership team there in Colorado, in Denver, and connect with them over the fall. It's going to be a great fall. Hunter, thanks again for your investment with them in the community. We really appreciate it.
Excellent, Mark. Great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
So, hey, new at HMG is the HMG Marketplace. In these times of a pandemic, it's really difficult to get tech leaders together with top leading partners that are supporting the HMG platform. Let's run the digital asset, folks.
Many tech leaders are struggling to find the right solution to their technical business problems. HMG Strategy has created the HMG Marketplace and Reference Center to connect tech leaders with subject matter experts from peer-vetted providers of critical services and hot new technologies.
The HMG Marketplace, think of it as a reference center, a library to find out more about our partner companies and then set up a meeting.
It's challenging for all of us that we can't be together at these events. You won't be meeting necessarily with a salesperson, you're going to be meeting with myself, our senior executive team.
This truly is a game changer. So yes, you simply can go to the homepage at HMG Strategy and click on Marketplace and learn more about our top tier A1 partners that make this model work for us, and they really truly are delivering innovative, demonstrable value and solutions. So a little pop-up poll, folks. If you can jump in there, we'll revisit these findings later in the summit. That'd be great. What are organizations' specific technologies need now? Moving along. And finally, stay tuned for our awards.
Later in today's program, HMG Strategy founder and CEO Hunter Muller will proudly recognize and honor global technology executives who matter. These top-tier CIOs, CISOs, and other technology executives have genuinely distinguished themselves in business transformation, digital disruption, innovation, and talent development through even the most difficult circumstances. These awards are not given lightly. They are earned. Recipients join an elite community of forward-thinking global technology executives in the HMG Strategy community. We are delighted to celebrate these exemplary leaders and their teams who have delivered unparalleled value to their organizations, their communities, and our world. Please stay with us for the award ceremony and meet the 2020 Global Technology Executives who matter.
So it's a program we've been running for over a decade, recognized several hundred IT leaders for innovation, driving massive transformation and change leadership throughout their enterprises. Please stay tuned in to the very end to see who we're going to be recognizing here today. So next up is Warren McNeel. Warren is the Senior Vice President of Product and Technology and Customer Experience at T-Mobile. And the title of the interview is How 5G is Changing the Enterprise and Probably Everything to Do with the Go-to-Market. Hey, Warren, you have a really big role at T-Mobile. Give us a sense of T-Mobile's size and scale and the breadth of your role, please. Good to see you.
Hey, Hunter. Thanks for having me on, first of all. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with this group. So T-Mobile, which is a combination of both T-Mobile and Sprint, now the second largest carrier in the United States, serving over 100 million customers. And, we are one of the largest retailers in the country as of today. We run call centers all over the country. We have about 195,000 people, combination of employees, as well as people that we are working with that support all of the great things that our employees are doing every day. So my role within T-Mobile, I'm responsible for customer experience, and that effectively entails all of our channels. So our retail, our call centers, and our digital properties, including the web and what you see on your device, all of those applications. So, yeah.
You know, when you think about as this pandemic, this unique environment continues to progress, how is T-Mobile positioned to help the enterprise tech leader stay connected and drive innovation and digital transformation?
Yeah, maybe I can, a good place to start is just relate it back to our own experience. If I think back in March when the pandemic really began to set in, I talked about we have 17 call centers around the country, and we were faced with a lot of the same challenges that other companies were faced with. We want to protect our people. We want to keep providing great service. What do you do? And I received a call in early March saying, look, we have all these people, over 10,000 people in these call centers. Is there anything we can do to help them? And so we began to sit down and we looked at that problem, both from a technology standpoint and physically, what could we do? And within 2 weeks, we had cars that would pull up in front of a call center. We'd take the equipment off the desk of the rep, put it in the trunk of the car, send them home. We had figured out a way to do call routing where we could send those calls to individuals' homes rather than having those go to the call centers. And the impact, for the reps, it's about their job. It's about continuing to be able to support customers. And when they're interacting with customers and telling them what happened, they're conveying, hey, you know what, our company took care of us, and we're here to take care of you. So it goes in line with, I think, part of our culture and how we operate, but it was kind of the experience that we had just going into COVID and initially responding to it.
Warren, your ability to pivot didn't come overnight. How did you prepare for this unique set of events?
Yeah, if you think about T-Mobile for about the last 7 years, we were a carrier. We were in last place 7 years ago, and we began what we called the Uncarrier movement. And the business fundamentally went through a transformation, and we started launching in carrier moves every couple of months, whether it was getting rid of contracts, giving people the ability to call from an airplane, simplifying the billing. The list just went on and on. We were looking at that as a technology group and saying, how are we going to keep up? We went from fourth place to quarter after quarter. We were the #1 growth company in wireless. And as a technology group, we were operating on antiquated technology. And we said, we're going to have to transform along the business. So we began a transformation process that hit on a couple of key areas. One, we had to transform our people and our culture to think differently. Simple examples of that. Right out of the gate, we took our operations teams, we merged them with our development teams. You build it, you own it. The impact of that, within the first year, we were seeing P1 issues almost on a daily basis. That dropped down to maybe 1 to a month. Mean time to recover went from 800 minutes down to 80 minutes, just a dramatic change. We coupled that with a change in technology, change in our architecture. We went from monolithic packaged software down into microservices and an API framework. And to put that into context, we were doing large releases on a quarterly basis. We were doing really well. We might do it monthly. Within about 24 months, we were doing about 100 releases a day. And the fundamental change that happened is we said, look, we're coming from a place where change is risky. And we're only going to do it on a Saturday night so that going into Sunday, we're not going to impact the retail stores. And what we told our teams is, no, what we want you to make those changes in the middle of the day in prime time. And they do about 100 of them a day. And they're doing it when we see the largest usage of our platform. So we fundamentally had to shift our thinking, our technology, and the transformation has been massive. So 2 years ago, I sat down with one of our business units and I said, look, we need to change how we're doing call routing. I want to transform that technology. Why? Because we want to be able to continue to innovate. It's not that we were having major problems. Well, the question was, what's that innovation going to look like? I said, I don't know yet, but we've got to put ourselves in a position where we can do it. And lo and behold, COVID shows up 2 years later, and that's exactly what allowed us to pivot as quickly as we did. So it's one example of our culture, how we think, and how we operate that played itself out, unfortunately, because of a pandemic.
You know, Warren, thanks. When you think about it, the new world really is a service model, and you've certainly converted your platform to a service on-demand model. When you think of the enterprise and your leadership style, how are you able to accomplish that? And what can other leaders learn from you relative to the importance of a service model?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I think were critical in our transformation and changing our culture and the way that we thought. Going from standing still, that to us became the risk. First of all, it was be willing to adopt that change. I know a lot of companies are thinking about transformation, but looking at it and saying standing still is the biggest risk, not making the change. So we had to make that mind shift. And then with our employee base, it was getting them comfortable that they're going to learn new things. We're going to go down this path, and we're going to make mistakes along the way. But what we're going to do is we're going to learn from it and providing the air cover to allow them to learn. And, when we had our issues and we were going through that transformation, we stood behind our employees. And it's at the point now where when we had to go home as a technology group, Hunter, we didn't miss a beat. We kept going. We did this and started working from home right in the middle of the largest telco merger in history. And it's gone incredibly well. And I attribute that to the culture that we created over the last several years where teams could go work remote because of that high degree of accountability that we've created over time. And just the feeling that they're responsible and they can make things happen, and they are.
Thanks, Warren. We're about to embark on another upgrade into 5G. What can we expect from 5G, and why does it matter? Why is it important?
Yeah, a good portion of my career at T-Mobile was leading product groups. And when I think back over that period, and you have these big changes in technology, whether it's changes in the iPhone and Android coming, and we had plans and all of a sudden it was disrupted and we started moving down a different path, or higher speed networks that have driven things like the Uber example often gets played out. Who would think you would one day step into a car, meet somebody, or somebody you don't know, you're going to pay them after they take you somewhere. All of that happening because the opening up of these networks. I think when you think about 5G, where you have incredibly low latency combined with now edge computing, along with the cloud and AI, I think we're going into another period where you're going to see this rapid evolution of technology. And instead of the Uber example, I'll give one that I think is a little more to the point. I had a chance to go fly with a medic group, going up in a helicopter when they went to pick up a critical patient. And I watched this pilot from a tablet. He had to navigate 3 different weather zones, where we took off, where we're going to pick up a patient, to where he was going to potentially land. And that could change because we're in Seattle and the weather is changing quickly. He was doing that, navigating the aircraft, dealing with the patient and back, all of the requirements for fuel, all of it from this tablet. And I watched it and I thought, the changes in technology, we think about cars, but here's a scenario that literally is life and death. And think about how much that experience for that pilot has changed in just the last 10 years. I think the same thing starts to happen with 5G. And when I look at the opportunity for enterprises, large applications that are mission critical, maybe they're running in the cloud, elements of those move to the edge, whether it's because of that low latency or because you want to provide even more redundancy than what you're getting, for example, within the cloud providers. I think it's just a huge opportunity. I think T-Mobile is incredibly well positioned to do it. I mean, we've got 250 million people already covered in 5G in 7,500 cities. And I think about the speed at which this change is going to happen, and I just feel like we couldn't be in a better place than we are right now, because it's only going to get better.
Hey, Warren, thanks for coming on the program. Any final thoughts on why T-Mobile now?
I think it goes back to kind of where we started this conversation. We're talking a lot about the network and the power of the network that we now have and the incredible assets that we're bringing together, really second to none, and the lead that we have in the 5G space. You couple that with the culture that we've created that I think it's a key asset for T-Mobile and incredibly difficult to replicate, where you have teams that the level of accountability and can-do attitude, it's tough to find. And I that's part of the reason I love being with this company, and I'm just very proud of what we're able to do and what we will do as we go forward.
Great to have you on the program. Thanks again. Appreciate your
Hunter,
support.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
You too.
Next up, we have David Politis. David's the founder and CEO of BetterCloud. David, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Hunter. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. Where are you coming in from today?
I'm in New York City.
Okay, just down the street. Hey, when you think about our overview, the impact of accelerating SaaS adoption in the modern IT team, why does that matter now? Why is that important more than ever?
Yeah, I mean, if you look really at the last 4-5 months, you look what happened, starting early March, and everyone, all the digital transformation projects that people were talking about, working on, planning over these long periods of time, they happened overnight, literally. I mean, we've heard stories of people literally on a Friday saying, okay, Monday, everyone's going to work from home. I'm not ready, but we're going to figure it out. And that same company before would have taken 3 years. Instead, it took 3 days. So we've seen this digital transformation just accelerate. I think we're going to hear it a lot today from a lot of the panelists and a lot of the discussions you have. It just accelerated. And with that, the number of applications, SaaS applications that people are using, we're seeing the average number of SaaS applications now is 80 SaaS applications, the average number a company is using. If you go back 5 years ago, the number was 8. I mean, it's increased 10x, and a lot of that has happened really in the last 4 to 5 months. And so as you think about that, it's changing. I mean, it's completely changing how people are working. We all feel it every day. Our users feel it every day. It's completely changed how people are working. It's changed IT's priorities. I mean, it's amazing. The project to build out the office. We had just expanded our office IT had a huge project to build it out and put Zoom rooms everywhere. Nothing, there's no more, that doesn't matter anymore. I have to change the complete mindset of responsibilities and focus. So for us, this is, I started this company 9 years ago, and I've been wondering what that tipping point was going to be. And this has been that tipping point.
Hey, congratulations on being a CEO and founder. What was the problem that you identified 10, 11 years ago? And what are you executing on now? What are you doing for the IT enterprise and the CIO?
The problem that we saw, back then when I started BetterCloud was companies are moving to SaaS, moving to the cloud. And in this environment that's no longer homogenous, you're not just using everything from one vendor in one stack. You really have a best of breed environment. You may be using RingCentral or Zoom for video conferencing, and you may be using Slack for chat, and you may be using Office 365 for mail, and you're using Box for files. I mean, when you talk about these heterogeneous environments, it's a completely different paradigm in terms of how you manage the users in that environment, how you secure data, how you figure out which applications people are using. And so, again, it's crazy because 9 years ago I thought, wow, we're about to hit the tipping point tomorrow. And you fast forward, and it's been slower than I expected. But the problems that we were solving they've stayed consistent throughout. I mean, you think about the challenges of, simple, offboarding a user. Someone leaves the company, you have to offboard them. When you've got this best of breed environment, it could take someone, we're seeing on average 8-9 hours to offboard someone. When you start compounding that on all the different people that have to be onboarded, offboarded, make sure that access is removed, make sure that the data is transferred to someone, these things start to really, they're big challenges. And it's just, people have tried to solve it with kind of legacy types of mindset. And for me, it was very much, how do we solve it for cloud, for SaaS specifically, for cloud specifically? It takes a different technological approach than it does, in a on-prem type of environment.
What exactly do you do?
So what we do, we are the leading SaaS ops platform. And so when you think about SaaS ops, it's this new practice that has evolved, similar to DevOps. I mean, if you think about DevOps, 2006 AWS came out. 2009 was the first time DevOps was used as a term. And you think about the back-end technology people are using and the engineers and this new way of continuous delivery and microservices, all that. That same thing exists for IT with the front-end technologies that employees are using every day to do work. So that's SaaS ops. And the main elements are discovering which applications are in use, how much are you spending on those applications, how often are they being used, managing those applications, automating a lot of the day-to-day work there, and then ultimately securing the sensitive data that lives there or the important data that lives in those applications. So that's what BetterCloud does. We help IT discover, manage, and secure their SaaS applications. And so that's, we have about 2,000 customers all over the world, ranging from people who are, startups that are 500 people that started in the cloud to companies that are 100 years old that, have just started their cloud journey. And so we really see the full spectrum.
Interesting times, right? So how does somebody get started with you? What does a trial look like? We're in this day of a minimal viable concept, free trial. What does it look like?
Yeah, so the best way to get started with us, where we spend a lot of time early on with customers is when they come to us, most people don't have a full view of their environment. And so what we ask people to do is we work with them. We actually can give them a snapshot, an audit of their environment and show them where they may want to start spending some energy, investing some time, maybe show them, hey, did you know that you have 10,000 files shared publicly with credit card information, for example? Did you know that you've got 50 users that were never offboarded who are actually in a suspended state, but they still have access to all this data? Did you know you use 100 SaaS applications and you could probably save yourself, $500,000? So we try to help people get a snapshot and a view of what's happening in their environment and show them BetterCloud in their environment. And usually from that, people start identifying which areas they want to tackle. I mean, to tackle all of this at one time it's a lot, and so usually they decide there's an area where they really want to focus whatever is important to them. And so that's how we help people, get started with us.
Is there a security angle to this as well?
100%. I mean, the security piece is usually the one that people want to start with because it's obviously the most critical. I mean, you know, what we find, we go into environments 100% of the time. I mean, actually 100% of the time, we find people who are forwarding corporate email to personal email accounts, personal Gmail accounts, Yahoo accounts. We find people who, not on purpose, but have taken files and shared their entire file system with some external party or publicly. Again, we see places where the average number of super administrators, I mean, people who have full access to the entire environment on any of these SaaS applications is 12 or 13. Right? We're talking about full access to all the data. So we find that a lot of times people want to clean that up and remediate all of that first before going into some of the other areas of automation and user management and things like that. So security actually is a lot of times where people want to start once they get a sense of what's in their environment.
Okay, sure. You know, as a long-term IT leader and tech professional, is it perhaps the most exciting time to be in our industry?
Oh, I have never been. I've spent my entire career in SaaS, starting at a cloud PBX business back in 2004, which is before you know, it was called Cloud PBX. It was IP Centrics, but back then I've spent my entire career in SaaS, cloud, and what is happening right now. You can just look at the market, look at who's going public, look at what is happening in cloud, in SaaS. I mean, and I think it's a big opportunity, frankly, for IT leaders, because this is like, I feel like this is the Super Bowl. This is like the golden age of IT, because this is going to be when IT is really empowering their organizations. They're going to have a seat at the table in a way that they haven't before. So I'm, as you can tell, very excited. But I think, you know, for IT leaders, this is the time. I mean, the opportunity to make an impact right now and is bigger than, I mean, people are relying, you know, on IT in a way that I would say probably has never happened before.
Yeah, David, thanks for supporting HMG, the platform, in this summit in Denver. Obviously, Denver is an important market to you, right?
Absolutely. I wish I lived in Denver right now, to be honest, but we have a bunch of customers there. I've spent a lot of time there, not recently, obviously, but yeah, I wish we could be doing this in person.
Okay, great. Well, it's great to have you on the program. And how can people get in touch with you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, you can just email me directly, david@bettercloud.com. I'm always happy to talk to people directly. And if not, you can just go to bettercloud.com and reach out, and someone will get in touch with you immediately.
Great. Thanks, David. Appreciate your support. Always good to see you.
Thank you so much, Hunter.
Bye now. Next up, we have Kira Makagon. She's the EVP and Chief Innovation Officer at RingCentral. Ring is our preferred platform here today. Hey, Kira, always great to see you.
Great to see you, Hunter. Thanks for having me.
Give us an update about Ring and where you're at, and the things that you're thinking about as it relates to innovation in this really cool space of collaboration on a global level, right?
Look, so, you know, we've been firing in all cylinders. So obviously was the transformation that is rapidly, this digital transformation that is rapidly accelerating. RingCentral is in the center of it all. And we, at the very start, set on of the pandemic, we released RingCentral Video, and now we have over 10,000 businesses running on it. And some of these businesses, you know, I really want to point out those things that really change people's lives, such as businesses in healthcare, where we help people be taken care of by basically connecting things such as, for example, pediatric offices with patients, so they don't have to come into the office, such as dental care, so people can schedule meetings in a HIPAA compliant way. So we've been kind of working really hard to basically enable and work with our customers to enable them to do their business in a new way. And, you know, we often think of businesses being, you know, those sort of, you know, you got to be in a brick and mortar building or in some office, someplace. Well, that's no more. And RingCentral's basically message, video, and phone are like our collaboration suite is at the center of it all. And we continue to roll out more and more stuff as we see more use cases come up in this new environment of remote workforce and businesses rapidly having to transform themselves if they haven't yet.
Thank you, Kira. A little more about what's unique about RingCentral being that it's multi-platform, right?
Well, it's multi-platform. So we're unique in that we do offer, it's any device, anywhere, any mode of communication. And we didn't come up with it just now. That were our founding principles. They just seem to work really well now. And what that means is from the very start, you could be at home, you could be on vacation, you could be anywhere, and you have available to you any mode of communication, whether that's collaboration by way of messaging, file sharing, etc., video, and we're on right now, and then a phone, of course, with all the complexities of managing a business in a multi office, a multi extension, multi business rule environment. We bring it all together and make it very, very simple in the form of, I'll take up my, I guess it's not the virtual background is letting me show you my mobile phone, but make it available in the form of an app or running on any device. And we're unique in that value proposition, having been completely cloud-based from the ground up. And we add to it contact center, so you can also run your contact center. And now we're seeing your contact centers, basically your agents taking orders or your agents answering calls, also enabled in a remote way. And that all works together in one suite of applications with one single set of analytics, quality of service, and I could go on.
When you think about your passion for RingCentral and innovation, what are you working on that's interesting and cool that our audience would like to know about?
So a lot of my time right now is, of course, focused on just making sure that we meet and exceed our customers' expectations, and that goes by way of SLAs, availability. And the last thing you want is for anything not to be available in this time of people's total dependency on remote work and the tools available to them. So how do you make that easier? Well, you make it easier by making it easier for the users, the usability, and how do you improve that? You potentially think of things to facilitate their interactions, and that comes in form of artificial intelligence. So a lot of the things that we're thinking of and working on right now are things to make the video more compelling, the video experience more compelling, to make your notes-taking a more interesting, facilitated experience. We already bring to the table ability to collaborate from sort of you go seamlessly from being just in a team chat to a video meeting or to a phone call, moving that to a video chat, and then moving that to a different device. And we continuously enhance our clients to be able to do that. And that's all for users. And that's, of course, available on any device, with mobile being first. And then for administrators, of course, we got to take care of them. So we got to continue to build more intelligence, more analytics, again, facilitated and driven by underlying artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms, so that they can see how their users are performing, how's the network, and then ability to, of course, manage to the user's needs remotely. Nobody wants to go into an office right now. Well, with RingCentral, you never had to go to an office, but now you may not even have your IT available to you. You may be administering RingCentral, but you may need your IT to help you do something. Well, we want to make it easy so that you can do it very simply by way of a single interface, intelligence behind it, and ability to manage anything from a very small business. If you're just a single, you're a doctor and you just have a couple of nurses, to having thousands and hundreds of thousands users that you have to manage globally. And so the last thing that I will add, we continue to do that. We continue to add a lot more on the global scale in terms of global countries with RingCentral, which you can do. And what we're focused on is making you be able to run your business globally, like you're running it domestically. No difference. And we do that in over 40 countries today on all continents on all the continents.
Excellent. That sounds great. You know, we often talk, Kira, in our CIO and CISO summits about innovation, and innovation really does come at a time when you constrain resources. What are your thoughts on that idea, and why is that important?
Well, you know, it's sort of, you want to be in the think tank, right? You're saying you constrain your resources. Well, what does it mean? You're out really putting yourself in the think tank, and a very specific, what's driving innovation is, look, we can all think of a lot of interesting things to do, but if those things are not resonating with users, or if they're too early, they're not as exciting. Well, now everybody is going through this transformation in sort of a very concrete use case. You will all, or most of us, are at home. If you're not at home, it was in constrained interactions. So in that mode of what I call, from my putting my product hat on, use cases, I'm working as a very specific set of use cases. And so the innovation cycle is very focused on thinking of how do I meet the specific set of use cases, and that is actually accelerating what we do in this environment. And so you see us release a lot of things, you know, make it available to our users, to our customers, to enable them to succeed in this environment.
Excellent, Kira. You know, when you think about CIOs and working with the CEO and the C-suite, innovation is core to everything going forward. It always has been, really, in my opinion. What are some advice or tips you can give to CIOs in navigating the C-suite and the CEO and helping them drive an innovation agenda?
Excellent question. So, you know, especially for larger companies, right? There's being able to run your IT organization well is a lot about also being conservative to some extent, right? Making sure that you don't do things that jeopardize stability and usability, security of those who you serve. And so how do you innovate in this? Well, you have to be able to fail fast, and you have to be able to think out of the box, and you have to be able to try new tools in maybe what I would call cohorts of users. And David from BetterCloud talked a little bit about this, about cloud adoption, and how do you do this? And he helps people with that. And so, you know, we would be one of those technologies. For example, if you are not in the cloud today, you have to very rapidly get into the cloud. And so one example that I would give, you know, do it a cohort of users at a time. You know, move very quickly as you're innovating by trying things out, making sure that they succeed in incremental steps. This is how we build everything at RingCentral. From innovation perspective, you can do this. You apply the same methodology at larger scale to, you know, hundreds of thousands of users, if that's your audience, and you evaluate it, and you should. And so this fail fast and try things out is the way to move forward. I think many of the CIOs today who are rapidly who are accelerating their transformation, digital transformation, who are still in that process, will find that that companies in the SaaS space will hold their hand. They will help them. We're all in it together, so we will all succeed together, and so we'll help you innovate.
Excellent stuff, Kira. Thanks so much for coming on the program today. One last question. What are you most passionate about today in the enterprise and being a tech leader?
What am I most passionate about? Look, everything that I've talked about is really about, in a way, I think today, for the first time, I could say that not only do we enable people to run their business, we actually change people's lives. And so changing people's lives is a big statement. And so when we can better people's lives, when we can introduce features, tools, support that enables that, and I've given you examples very early of pediatric offices, of healthcare, the same as in education. That is, you know, that that just, that really resonates with me today. It's a lot more than bringing technology to the table. It's really enabling people to thrive. And sometimes it means, taking care of them, their health, their education, their financial needs, by way of bringing them the tools that they need today.
Great having you on the program again. Thanks so much for supporting us, Kira. We're looking forward to seeing you again, and really compelling story. How can people get in touch with you?
Look, you can find me at RingCentral, and it's kira@ringcentral.com. It's very easy, or you can find me on Twitter. I think it's Kira Makagon on Twitter. Either way, I'm out there, so please reach out.
Excellent. Thanks again. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks, Hunter. Good to see you.
Yeah, take care. Next up, we have executive panel fostering an agile strategy in a time of uncertainty. First up is Rodney Fullmer. Rodney's the CTO and Global Services at Arrow Electronics. Rodney, always good to see you. A little context about Arrow.
Hi, Hunter. Nice to see you again, too. At Arrow, we're a large component, electronic component, and an enterprise compute distributor, but we also have a really large services business that I'm part of, where we focus on helping companies solve the hardware problems they have associated with their software through design engineering, professional and support services, and a robust supply chain organization as well.
And how big?
Arrow's a really large company. So we're Fortune 100, so I guess about $30 billion a year in revenue, 18,000 employees worldwide. So large multinational organization.
Hey, scale really matters for you. What is it like to have an agile enterprise on scale like you're working?
Yeah, it's challenging, right? Whenever you have an organization as big as ours, mobilizing in quick and agile ways can be a pretty challenging thing to accomplish. But it's kind of been in our DNA for a while, and certainly, the changing environment with COVID has caused us to, move even faster and more aggressive into that space.
How have you done? What have you done to be more agile in this distributed work from home environment?
Yeah, we've done a few things actually. So we kind of looked at our decision-making process. We've really tried to take some levels out of the hierarchy there. So really kind of empower teams to make more decisions with less sort of overhead. That's something that kind of naturally comes with a large organization. You put a lot of controls in place to manage a big company, and so that can kind of slow you down. So we've looking at how we can kind of shrink the hierarchy in terms of decision making. We've actually allocated more time to strategy and planning as well. So we've kind of taken some of the time that we've gotten back being remote, not traveling, not being on the road, and we've really put that to work, focused on strategy and development. But one of I think the key things that we've done that's made that work for us well is we try to kind of compartmentalize it more into sort of like a Scrum, taking an agile approach, kind of using a page out of software development and applying it to our executive leadership team, and choose one topic, be very focused, drive towards outcome, keep it short. And I actually think that's allowed us to innovate probably more than we normally do, and definitely quicker than we had in the past.
Excellent. Any surprises regarding innovation in this crisis?
It's always surprising how fast you can go when you have to versus how fast you don't go when you just want to. So for me, I think, and probably the rest of the team, that's one of the big things that has kind of come out of this. Like, you can do amazing things and you could do them really quickly if you just have the drive to go and make it happen.
Rodney, that might be the quote of the year. That's a good one. Hold on line one. Thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Next up we have Shandi Ghosh. Shandi's the Chief Operating Officer and GM, Intelliquent 911 Emergency Services. Shandi, everyone loves you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. So what have you been up to in this pandemic?
It's been a, obviously shocking and a very exciting time for us because I'm in telecom, and just to give a little background, I run the 911 business unit for Intelliquent. And so we do 911 services, which doesn't stop, doesn't matter what the, what's going on in the world, right? It is literally governed by the Department of Homeland Security. It's critical infrastructure for the country. It's something that goes at all times. So, but from a telecom perspective, which is my parent company, the industry has seen growth by about, say, 30 to 40% during this pandemic, mainly because, as you can imagine, everyone's working remote, and now everybody needs bandwidth. So we've been extremely busy working on a whole lot of different solutions, backbones. In fact, most of the video conferencing platforms that we're talking about, we do a lot of the backbone behind a lot of those platforms. So as you can imagine, that has grown a lot. I wish I was in wine sales. That would have helped too. But anyway, so it's been tremendously busy, as you can imagine. There have been challenges. The work from home, just like we just heard, when you have to do something, you get good at it. I mean, the good news is we're all very technologically savvy, so we can actually move really fast. If you think about like the education industry, teachers, etc., they are having such challenges moving suddenly from a very paper-based world to an electronic world and online. So that, I think we have to thank our lucky stars that we're already there. And so for us, it isn't as hard as a lot of other industries. The last thing I'll say is about security challenges, as you can imagine, being part of the critical infrastructure in the country. Turning up all this backbone and getting all these new services, and for 911 there's a whole lot of next generation efforts that we're doing. We talk about how you want to move to a much more digital world, much more of the texting as opposed to the more old-fashioned picking up the phone and make a phone call and having people in centers, etc. So there's a lot of changes that are occurring for the next generation 911 of the world. So especially in the US and North America, which we're in. So it's a lot of exciting work, I have to say.
Thanks, Shani. Stay with us. Next up is Coley Burke. Coley is the CRO at Zerto. Welcome to the program, Coley.
Hello, Hunter. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Awesome. Yeah, great to see you as always. Hey, when you think about recommendations regarding an agile organization and agile infrastructure, what comes?
Yeah, so certainly for us as a vendor of technology, we love talking about how we can help deliver agile infrastructure. And I'll kind of put it in context of what I see as we talk to customers. Zerto is an IT resilience platform, as we call it, which in our terms, that means we're here to help you modernize your disaster recovery and your data protection and how you take advantage of cloud. So all of those things bring a lot of kind of need of modernizing to become agile. So the biggest thing that I see and I think, Warren kind of summarized it the best when he said 2 years ago, they sat and developed processes and thought about change. And then when it was time to go say, hey, let's go do these things in the middle of the workday, they already could do it because they were modernized. And that's the biggest thing that I see, that when you've taken a path to truly look at how do you become agile, looking at your technology, your process, your people, your ability to adapt really comes on the heels of, have you modernized? Are you using automation? Are you making your process efficient in order to help your people execute that? So, we push a lot on tool consolidation. Microservices has come up here, legacy thinking has come up here. So for me, pushing on all of those things, modernizing, automating, and driving the people to become more efficient, to focus on those types of things is how you become agile. But it all starts with the willingness to kind of take on that change and push it through.
Excellent. When you think of the CIO tech leader interfacing with the CEO, the C-suite in the line of business, how can they really drive demonstrable change and innovation?
I think a big piece of that for me, and I love when I'm sitting across from people that are like this, kind of bold and daring thinking is kind of how I'll articulate that. If you're willing to be bold and be daring and challenge status quo and push beyond the unknowns, I think that's where you really drive innovation. And I love sitting in front of organizations that want to push and challenge and push maybe the boundaries of what you think was capable. The biggest thing for me coming out of COVID is I think most everybody has realized challenging the status quo, inspecting everything, and pushing beyond kind of maybe that thinking of a year ago is how you drive innovation. It's just believing that, again, I'll go back to Warren's example because I love that example, because we have customers every day that used to do their DR tests and be highly disruptive and on a weekend. Now they do it in the middle of the day and it's not impactful, it's automated, less resource. And I think that's how you push innovation. You dare to be able to do it.
Excellent. Love it, Coley. Stay with us. We'll circle back to you here in a second. Next up, we have Miles Weber. Miles, the CIO of Appian. Miles, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
A little bit about your role and context, but I guess first we have a poll, right? We're going to run a poll.
Sure.
Is that right? Are you using purpose-built software for your return to office plans? Yes or no?
So let me, while that's going on, let me give a kind of quick intro. Miles Weber, CIO at Appian. Appian's a growth company. We're a software company. We IPO'd about a couple years ago, and we focus on automations. Our customers use our software to build workflows, which would help automate the work that people do, help build AI integrations, which will have computers do the work for you, or use our RPA software, which uses software robots to integrate with legacy systems or do highly repetitive work. So our customers use these capabilities to build applications and automations, help run their own business. That poll there was related to workforce safety and return to work. Appian used our own platform to build software for companies to speed the return to work when it's safe and comfortable for them. And it's an example of us being able to use that platform to build apps quickly and get them out on the market. Our customers do the same with our platform, and we're using it to build solutions for those customers as well.
Interesting. Where are you all based?
Northern Virginia, but we have offices all across the world.
Okay, great. And tell us a little bit more about your role at Appian.
Sure. CIO is an interesting role in a software company. Sometimes they don't exist because CTO will handle it all. Sometimes they just run the IT stuff, IT like email and ERP. For me, I run lines of businesses. So I run our software as a service business, which is about 2/3 of our software business. Tech support rolls up to me, InfoSec, and I also responsible for adding robotic process automation to our Appian platform recently as well.
Gotcha. How would you characterize leadership style?
I believe in focused and empowered teams. I think you can do a lot with focused and empowered teams. They get ownership. They have decision-making ability. And I think when you have those capabilities, people will really give a lot to make sure that there's success there. I think bureaucracy kills any tech company. You need innovation, and in order to get innovation, you need empowered teams. And in order for them to be empowered, they got to be small too.
We do a lot of summits around the world, Miles, and people are talking about leading with empathy and humility. What does that mean to you, and why is that important?
I think, especially with the work from home scenario, some people love it, right? If you look on social media, you'll see lots of things there about like everyone should work from home forever and things like that. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there's a lot of headwinds and challenges that have affected large portions of the population. You can think of single parents, especially with their kids doing remote schooling, and how are they going to do work from home as well as make sure their kids get a good education. You can think of young professionals that joined in major cities, New York or London, have roommates and things like that, and you have multiple of them working from home for different companies all at the same time. It's presented some tailwinds for people, but also, we have to really acknowledge the headwinds as affected large portions of our workforce.
Certainly, this whole pandemic's affected everyone around the world. But let's try to stay positive and put a positive spin on this session here, in the sense that what did we learn from it? What was the silver lining that we learned from it, and that wouldn't have happened, right? You must have some amazing stories.
Yeah, I think people at Appian really rallied. I think with a distributed workforce, it was pretty simple. We're a tech company, so it was pretty straightforward for us to move to work from home. But people really rallied around it. I think you have a loss of community that happens in these scenarios, and you want to gravitate towards pillars of confidence and pillars of comfort, and interacting with your coworkers is important, and interacting with your community is important. And so I think the ability for people to rally together is important. So I think it's our focus on working to improve. All software has bugs. All people make mistakes. And what I think is important is that we keep trying to be better people, and we keep trying to create better technology, because none of it's good enough today. Us as people and us as technologists, we all have to do better. And it's important that we keep trying to work on that.
Great question. I mean, great point. Thank you. Appreciate it, Miles. We'll circle back to you. Hey, Rodney, back to you. What was the silver lining for you in this whole pandemic? What did you learn that was unique and you wouldn't have learned, and it wouldn't be a takeaway if we hadn't gone through this kind of painful situation?
You know, that's a great question. I think maybe on the surface, like, our ability to kind of mobilize as an organization, mobilize as teams to, deal with adversity. You kind of know that's there. You think it's there. You hope it's there. But like seeing that in action is really reassuring. I think one level deeper, it's probably about how, this has afforded us an opportunity to connect, I think, both with our customers and our employees on a much deeper level, right? You have this like unifying global experience. Like our organization I mentioned earlier is very global. My role is global. Like the things that people are challenged with are universal right now as it relates to COVID. And I think that commonality, gave us a bridge to really get that much closer, like I said, to both our customers and our employees. And I actually think we're going to be a much stronger business as a result of that. And I think it was the catalyst that kind of caused that to happen, and somewhat unexpected as a result.
Okay, great. Stay with us there. Shani, same question to you.
Yeah, so I think there are lots of positives that have come out from this. First one I think I'll say is, one of the things that we've really looked at is, how do we pivot, and how well do we pivot to make sure that we are addressing the right challenges. So for example, we have different types of customers. We have government customers, we have private sector and public sector customers. So we know a lot of the government sector folks got a little delayed in their initiatives based on COVID. However, the private sector did not, and they were moving forward. So we kind of started reprioritizing our work to make sure that, and the fact that we are very lucky that we have a diversified portfolio of customers, because that's one of the things that is very important going forward, is to make sure that, how can you weather these storms, right? The other piece of it is, finding productivity tools to make sure people are engaged and they stay happy and they stay connected. So we do a lot of team building kind of things, which makes it very exciting. The other two areas, which are not technology specifically related, but see, I'm in Colorado, I live in Boulder. And one of the biggest things that we keep hearing in Colorado is there's always this challenge for an access to a workforce that's diverse. And here we can do work from home. There's a whole access to, companies can look into other markets, other areas to be able to get to that diverse workforce. So that's one aspect that's kind of a positive there. And then another one is, office spaces, real estate. We've been spending a lot of money on all these gorgeous offices everywhere. And when you think about it, can you stagger your workforce? There are learnings from this that we can basically take a look at and see how we can improve and, create a much more sustainable footprint.
Any other advice in these times?
So for us, the advice primarily is, look to see how you can pivot, look for digital options and solutions. Obviously, you've got to stay aligned to your long-term strategy, but, any short-term survival skills, etc. So, we're looking at all these different aspects. In my world, it's all about, you have the very stable public safety side of things, which are the 911 centers. And then on my left-hand side, which are my customers, are the very advanced risk takers, all the innovative companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, all of them. So they are changing technology 24 hours a day. And then you have the public safety side of the world, which is very, risk averse. And so we're always looking for innovative ways of bridging these two worlds. So it's an exciting place to be. So just, Yeah, be ready to pivot, be ready to look into what are sustainable long-term strategies.
Excellent. Thanks, Shandi. Over to Coley. Coley, when you think of these times, how can a CIO and their team position themselves really to drive customer and market intelligence?
Yeah, and I'm going to answer that kind of from my vendor side, right? Zerto's a data company. We're all about data, and clearly there's a lot of good decision making that comes out of having the access to the right data. So when I sit and listen, we spend a lot of time listening now as a vendor selling and trying to be a trusted advisor. How we go about what we do is dramatically changed because everyone we're talking to has gone through a dramatic change. Priorities change, initiatives change, demands of the remote workforce, and then the customers have changed with it. So when we sit and think around the data and the customer intelligence and the market intelligence, we're really listening for what are the priorities and the initiatives, and then how do we quickly adapt to helping them get the most out of that data that they're looking for. If we can help take the data, turn it into something actionable because of something we can offer around simplicity or automation that gives people time back, that's a great move for us. That's what we spend a lot of time listening. And I'll wrap up in an example. What we did as we heard some of this market intelligence and how customers were using our technology about a year ago in the span of a week across 3 different customers, I heard 3 different customers say, hey, we really have begun to use Zerto to help our patch management process. And I explored on that a little bit, and we realized that they were using us to test the patch and then to say that, hey, if I push the patch and it goes wrong, you help me actually roll out of it very simply, and we don't have to go through downtime. We can do it with less resource. And I kind of came back in and we started pushing on that, and they said, that's a real legit use case that our customers are telling us that is valuable to them. Then we went out and we kind of, we packaged it up. We did some reference architecture. So that's like us kind of listening to our customers, take their intelligence and what they learn, and we turned it into our own market intelligence, and we pivoted on that. So I think, a lot of it is definitely CIOs and IT executives tightly tied to the business through a really good digital strategy. As we talk about digital transformation, that's how you take all the customer and market intelligence and really put it to action. It's that tie between the business and IT, and that when you see that happen, backed by good modern technology and process, that market intelligence goes right into action, and you see the advances quickly.
Excellent, Coley. Thanks so much. Appreciate your insights. And how can people get in touch with you all?
Coley.burke@zerto.com, or if you just go to the Zerto webpage, I'm there. So love to talk to anybody and hear stories and what we can do to help.
Thanks for being here today, and thanks for your support. Really appreciate it. Hey, Miles, welcome back to the program. We did have that survey. Was that in the context of, did you pose the survey on the purpose?
Yeah, yes, I did.
Yeah. Can we post those results maybe, folks? Here we go. Are you using purpose? 25% yes, and 29%, 25 yes, 29 undecided. Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Hey, Hunter.
Yeah.
Hey, Rodney, do you mind if I jump in real quick with a comment on your last question around market intelligence?
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think market intelligence is a huge opportunity for technology leaders and CIOs right now to contribute to their business. And in my role, I don't have responsibility for internal IT. I have responsibility for commercial revenue generating IT. And so like myself and our sales leaders, like one of the things that we most need right now is additional market insight, access to sort of digital information, ability to engage digitally with our customers as we think about, how do we maintain a pipeline of opportunities from a revenue perspective and not being able to engage in the traditional ways. Like that's become super important. It's like one of our #1 priorities. So I think, CIOs out there that have sort of, stabilized the ship in terms of the reaction to COVID and going remote and are looking for new and different ways to engage. Like that is a great space that like business leaders really need help in right now.
Great. Thanks for doubling down on that. Appreciate it. Really good point, Rodney. Thanks. Over to Miles. Hey, Miles, final question. Challenging times, but opportunity, right, as well. Is it the best time ever to be in tech again?
I mean, I hear that question, and I just kind of think about, there's this movie where this actor says, every day is better than the next. And so I don't want to say it's the best time because it would imply that maybe the future is worse from now. But I think, I mean, tech is obviously key, and simplicity and ease of use will always be a focus of it. And so I think the best is in front of us in the future. I don't think it's the best right now.
Better. Great
The
answer to one of my typical questions. Thank you. And then the tech leader in the C-suite.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. Was that a question for me?
Sure. Yeah. Yes.
What was the question? Sorry.
The tech leader's role in the C-suite.
Oh, sure. I think in the C-suite, everyone's faced with challenges all the time, right? And so I think the tech leader needs to bring solutions, not problems. So I think we have to be ingrained with the business and not off in our own fiefdoms, and really bring solutions. I mean, it sounds simple, but I mean, I think we need to not focus so much on operations and focus on improving as a business. And it's our role as a tech executive to enable that and not only enable, but bring ideas to do it.
Great stuff. Hey, Miles, how can people get in touch with you and Appian?
Take my last name at appian.com. So Weber with 1B at appian.com.
Excellent. Great to have you on the program. Thanks for your insights. Really appreciate it. Great program, guys. Thanks, Miles. Thanks, Shandi, Rodney, and Coley. Great job. Stay with us to the end with the recognition program. Next up, we have Crisis in Career, Preparing for the Next Opportunity. Molly Rozzi, the CTO and Managing Director at Kagan and McDonald, will be leading us. Molly, take it away.
Thanks so much, Hunter. Yeah, we have an amazing panel. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at some of the bios of the panel members for this session, please do so and follow them. We've been talking so much about transformation and change and what people are going through. And sometimes when we're so focused on the business, we forget to focus on our careers. So I would love to start this conversation with Mark Polansky, who's the Senior Client Partner for Technology Officers Practice at Korn Ferry. Mark, could you tell us a little bit about the market analysis that you've been doing and what the job market looks like right now, what some of the directional trends are, and what are some of the biggest opportunities for technology leaders right now?
Well, thanks. Again, I'm thrilled to be here as I join my colleagues and my frenemies in this conversation around careers and what the market might look like today. And anecdotally, we all experienced a severe downturn in the February, March, April, and even into May timeframe. And it wasn't that companies were canceling searches, they were simply postponing them and pushing them off, telling us that they just didn't have the bandwidth to pay attention. They were preoccupied with company viability, with cash flow, with keeping the business running, and of course CIOs and their teams preoccupied with provisioning and getting thousands, if not tens of thousands of associates working from home. And then what happened in June and July, a lot of that pent-up demand, a lot of that postponed search activity came back as companies got more comfortable with the situation as it is. And so we've been busy now for the last 2 or 3 months. And then of course, the sandwich is that August, everybody took off for vacation. There was so much postponement of vacations and personal time off that just kind of exploded in the month of August. So we're bracing for the second tsunami after Labor Day. I wish my words come true. Directionally, it's all about technology, whether you're talking about the stock market, whether you're talking about long-term enterprise viability, whether you're talking about how did we manage to keep this company running with everybody at home. It's all about technology. So my colleagues and I expect to be very busy for a very long time.
Terrific. Thank you very much. And maybe I'll turn to Mark Haid now, Chief Learning Officer and Founder for Game Plan. leaders. Mark, when you hear the market may be opening up here and our other Mark is bracing for the tsunami, what are some of the things that tech leaders should do to ensure they land the right job for them?
Yeah, I think right now, thanks so much, Molly. I'm excited to be here. I think right now, leaders need to be more intentional than ever about what they're looking for. Really spend some time thinking about what is the role and what specifically do they want to do in that role. Because I think, as Mark said, there's going to be opportunities out there. It's just figuring out which one's the right one for you. So are you that leader that wants to lead a large team and really be an influencer of change? Or are you going to be the leader who wants to get in and actually code and actually be the functional technical leader for the organization? Being intentional about what you're looking for and how you want to do the job is going to be really important to finding the right match when you find that next company.
I think that's true with most things in life. First thing is knowing what you want in order to get what you want.
For sure. I think right now, so many people, there's going to be so many opportunities and people are going to be looking for those opportunities. Being more intentional about what you're looking for is going to help a lot.
And watch what you ask for. Be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. So we also have Tony Leng, who's the Managing Director, Digital Transformation CIO Practice Lead. Like I said, this is quite the power panel. Tony, you know, we've been talking quite a bit about COVID, but we also know that we're living in an environment of social unrest and social injustice and things like that. And so as you're looking at the candidates who you're putting forward, how are you thinking about some of the complexity with the social agenda?
Well, I think that's one component. And things have changed pretty dramatically over the last period of time. And let me kind of go high level and build on what the two Marks have said. So if you're a CIO, there's really three areas you really need to be concentrating on. One is the corporation, your voice within the senior leadership team, rethinking, understanding business models, and the social environment in which you find yourself. One, two, the technology group that you lead and how you lead that and manage that. And three is the people agenda. Are you hiring the right people? Are you focused on the right people? And are you building properly diverse teams? And those three things were complicated before COVID-19. The complication and the nuance that's now happened as a result has just gone up a lot. And no longer are you able to move at a leisurely pace on any of those agendas. You've had to rethink your business model quickly, transform your IT organization quickly, and really focus on the D&I agenda. And we, Mark and I, Polansky and I, are kind of at the front end of that. It's finding diverse candidates. But as a leader, you need to not only think of finding them, but they need to be included. They need to be welcomed. They need to feel a part of the organization. And so when we do that recruiting, it's not like we don't want to be the people bringing tokens into your organization. People need to feel like they're going to be listened to, they're going to be heard. There's an employee resource group that's appropriately in there. And so I ask my candidates questions around, tell me, how are you being vulnerable? How are you being open? How are you challenging your personal assumptions? How are you making space for diverse perspectives in your team? How are you encouraging participation? How are you intentionally mentoring people? How are you including people from diverse communities, giving them opportunities, moving them forward? Tell me what you're doing about that. How are you thinking about that in your environment? And if the candidates just sit with a mouthful of teeth, we know this is a challenge, and we're looking for that kind of humility, and we don't expect everybody to have all the answers, but we're looking for humility, we're looking for learning, we're looking for vulnerability in people, as a go-forward methodology. And Mark hopefully is going to talk about battlefields and war, and I completely agree with him. But, sometimes, the only piece I would add as a nuance to what Mark hopefully will say is that top-down command and control approach that we sometimes associate with battlefields is perhaps not the leadership, approach that's going to work in this new world. And Mark, kick in, man, because I know you have a lot to say. Unmute yourself first.
Now, what Tony's referring to is on another recent HMG summit. In the heat of the conversation, we were talking about how we're looking at candidates differently post-pandemic. And I said, well, certainly part of our repertoire now is the question, and out it came. I said, what did you do during the war? And when you think about it, I guess the real young people aren't that familiar with the expression, but I guess those who are maybe halfway or better through their career remember the expression, what did you do during the war? And in this context, of course, it means what did you do during the last 6 months? How did you react? What did you learn? What did you try that didn't work? What did you try that did work? How did you become all the things that Tony just mentioned? How did you become more empathetic, more inclusive, more sympathetic and more pliable and just simply all around better person, certainly having gone through the war. So the question—
Exactly right. Yeah.
Maybe put in different words, but the essence was, what did you do during the war? I want to know what you did for the last 6 months and how you were able to not only survive, but thrive. We're hearing about companies that have taken market share during the pandemic. And I don't mean that in a criminal way. I don't mean that in a negative, badly way. But, the old expression, never waste a good crisis. And in many cases, I have clients, and we all know companies that are acting strong. They're leveraging their balance sheets. They're leveraging their talent pool to provide better, faster, quicker, less expensive products and services in the market, and that will gain them market share. So we're looking for that as well. Thanks for the Tony.
Yeah, I figured you had to get your rebuttal in there. So Mark,
No, it's not a rebuttal. No, look, Mark and I
no.
work very cooperatively and closely. I actually agree with about 99% of everything Mark Polansky says.
Fair
Thank
enough.
you, Tony.
Fair enough.
Same.
So Mark, Hyde, when you're working with your clients and you're coaching people to be better leaders, what are some of the tech leaders struggling with right now that you think is really not going to change in the new normal?
Yeah, so as an executive coach here in Denver, coaching a lot of leaders across many industries and a lot of tech leaders, there's kind of three key things that I'm seeing. One, can they create a vision? Can that vision be something that their teams can follow? And that's becoming more and more clear of whether you can do that or not during the pandemic and when your team's at home. You can't drive by all the time and continue to give orders. Did you create a clear vision? The second thing is influencing change. Change is something that's always happened. It's just in hyperdrive right now. And from a change standpoint, can you influence change, get things out of the way of the change and make things happen? Like they were saying earlier, Mark was saying, during this time, are you driving your business forward or are you in protection mode? If you can influence change, that's going to be something that stands out. And then the last one is really coaching and delegating to your team. There are so many leaders that are trying to be the exhausted hero, the corporate hero who's trying to do it all themselves. And if they can't figure out how to get their team involved, they're not going to achieve it all. But if they can coach and delegate to their teams effectively, they can achieve it all without doing it all. And not be the exhausted hero, because we don't want to hire more exhausted heroes. We want to hire leaders.
That's really great advice. And we're seeing that so much with our clients as well. So thank you. Tony, as we're talking about these different changes and influences, are there different roles emerging? Like, because we've all been reading about chief everything officer, right? What are some of the roles you're seeing that are new and different, and how could people prepare for those?
Well, look, so I want to talk about the chief everything officer in a minute, but I think we all need to understand kind of directionally where technology is going. There's kind of compute, there's data, there's apps, and there's kind of this client experience. So we all know data fuels digital. So there's an expansion of people who are concentrating on data. And then there's always that top layer of, let's call it the customer experience. And we've moved from systems as a record, systems of intelligence to systems of experience. So those things are all in our bailiwick. But let me tell you, I think that chief this and chief that, a lot of that is a bunch of nonsense. And I've had conversations with chief executives who've said to me, well, I've got a CIO, maybe I need a chief digital officer. And I say to the CEO, let me explain it like this. You're currently the chief analog officer. You will become the chief digital officer. What that means is your business mostly functions analog, and in the future, it's mostly going to function digital. So I don't care what we call this, but let me help you recruit somebody who can manage the change of your jet flying with analog engines to flying with digital engines. This is complicated and it's difficult. And you need to be able to understand the business model, the technology, and the change agenda, as Mark Hyde, just explained. And we will help find that person. And so we've seen the proliferation of still CTO, CIO, CDO, CIDO. I mean, there's everything out there. It's all a bunch of nonsense. But what you do need is a leader who can drive the change agenda that's in place around your technology and how you were positioned to find and keep customers, which is the purpose of every business.
That's fantastic. Such great advice. So maybe as a lightning round, each one of you could just close with a couple words of wisdom for folks. Are there actions people could take right now, or things that, so we don't forget about our careers while we're growing our businesses? So Mark Polansky, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. Whether you're looking or not, whether you're actively looking or passively looking, regardless, you must always be prepared for the opportunity that knocks on the door and should get your attention. And the way to do that is to go back over your resume, update it for the last 6 months. It's an exercise you should be doing at least every year, but certainly for the last 6 months. Make sure it's crystal clear, make sure it's crisp and on point. And if you need help, there are a lot of resume writers out there. You can find them online, number one. Number two, do that for your digital resume, which is your LinkedIn profile. Similarly, make sure it's written well, written properly, hits hard, and please know I'm responsible for this and I'm responsible for that. That's your job. What we want is, I accomplished this, I saved that, I entered this market, I assisted finance in restructuring, whatever it is, accomplishment-oriented with action words. And be ready, because the call is going to come.
Great, thank you. Mark, do you want to take us from there?
Yeah, I think right now I just launched a book called Rescuing the Corporate Exhausted Hero, and it's all about we don't need corporate exhausted heroes in the marketplace. And so don't be one. And so it's really focusing about how do you get your team and get your team involved as a leader and driving change with your team as opposed to doing it yourself. We, as recruiters, are looking for the next CIO, the next leader of an organization, the next driver of change. They know that person can't do it themselves. So they're looking for great examples of somebody who is leading a project, not doing it all themselves, being the fire chief as opposed to being the firefighter. And so build more and more stories of that. If you feel like you're exhausted, you don't really want to go to the next place. You need to figure out how to manage your current place so you go to the next place fresh. So that's my advice.
Beautiful advice. Tony, what have you got for us?
So, and I think Mark or somebody mentioned, I think mentioned it earlier, kind of know who you are, what you want to do, and as Mark Polansky says, have the supporting infrastructure to show you're capable of that. That's number one. Number two, understand what headhunters do. We don't represent you, we represent our clients. And we don't have time just to, hey, here's my resume, give me half an hour on the phone, please. Because if we did that, we would spend all day, every day, just chatting to out-of-work people. So, that's point number two. Point number three, when we reach out, even if it's not a fit for you, engage, get to know us, tell us what you do want, and be nice. Because frankly, people who treat us like dirt and then suddenly lose their job and want to be our best friends. That's not a nice position to find yourself in. So be nice, be helpful, be courteous, and then, you know, it's kind of karma that'll come around and impact you positively as well.
Another piece of advice that works across your whole life. Thank you so much. Really terrific advice. Hunter, back to you.
Hey, Molly, great to be with you. Thanks so much for your ongoing support and engagement. Great panel, by the way. Mark, great job. Mark, always good job. Tony, you really delivered.
Thanks, Anna.
Great to see you all. Hey, next up, we have Securing the Future of Work. The infamous Rocco Grillo, Managing Director, Global Cyber Risk Services, Alvarez Marsal. Rocco, take it away.
Hunter, always a pleasure. Nice to see everyone again. Thanks for having me. We've got a great lineup today, and if you've seen from the agenda, we've got Meredith Harper on from Eli Lilly and Company, Sam Maiacello from Gates Corporation, Jeff Miller. To Hunter's point, today's topic, securing the future of work, and where do you start with that? I've been fortunate to be doing these with Hunter across the different regions that we've been rolling these out. But for me, as Hunter mentioned, I'm with Alvarez Marsal, been in the cybersecurity IT consultant space for almost the last 20 years and seen a lot of things as the landscape has evolved. And if you look at just the last 6 months, what's gone on from phishing attacks spiking, third-party major service providers under attack, the workforce in the blink of an eye, going from corporate environments to hundreds, thousands of employees going work from home, work from anywhere, ransomware attacks through the roof. Is it anything new? Again, it's something that I think the industry's been seeing, but at the same time, with workforces displaced, IT and security teams stretched, displaced themselves, a lot of distractions. That's a recipe for what we're seeing across the board. And with the CISOs that we have here today, we've got 8+ rock stars. Going to hand off to Meredith to do a brief introduction, get her thoughts on our session, and we'll take it from there. Meredith, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rocco. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Yes, it's been an exciting time. It's been a time where we've been moving really fast. So we'll talk a little bit about that in this session. But as he stated, I'm Meredith Harper, the Chief Information Security Officer and Vice President for Eli Lilly and Company. And we've been at the forefront of this, really trying to drive change in terms of developing solutions for COVID as well. So it's been a ride. I think there's a few things that we've learned about ourselves, that we can move quick, we can move fast, and we can produce quality. We also learned that our vendor community probably needs a little bit more support than what we actually thought they probably needed. Moving into this space, it just wasn't a model, a resource model that we were aware of, or we thought that we would ever have to find ourselves in that position. So thank you so much for having me here today. I'm eager to get into the discussion.
Great, thanks, Meredith. Sam, over to you.
Hello, everybody. This is Sam Maiacello. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Gates. We are a manufacturing company that is headquartered out of Denver, Colorado, but is a global organization. Similar to what Meredith was saying a moment ago, we've been full steam ahead over the past few months. We are considered an essential business during these times, given the fact that we largely service the industrial, oil and gas, and automotive industries. And so, we've certainly had our share of things we've had to develop and mature over the course of the past few months, and certainly looking forward to getting into some of that discussion today.
Great, thanks, Sam. Jeff, over to you.
Thanks, Rocco, and thanks, Hunter, and the rest of the HMG team. This is very exciting to be here today. And as with everyone else, we've learned a tremendous amount about the working environment, ourselves, our teams, our businesses. It's been absolutely an incredible growing experience, and I think everyone would agree with that. And I think we've heard some pretty amazing stories from the other speakers today. For us here in the Denver, Colorado area, where Honeywell Quantum Solutions is based out of, we're building quantum computers, and we came up with some pretty aggressive goals for this year, and we couldn't let something like a global pandemic get in our way. And so we had to move very quickly, as did everyone else, to continue to meet our commitments that we have made to the industry in this space. And so Hopefully we can share some of those lessons we've learned along the way, at least from a cybersecurity perspective. I have the unique opportunity to lead both cyber and IT. So I constantly find myself arguing in the mirror every night about who's right. It was my IT hat or my cyber hat, but it's been an exciting ride so far. So looking forward to the conversation.
Great, thanks for that, Jeff. Now, some of the things that we've seen in the industry, and even as I opened up, not necessarily doom and gloom, but not really great things that are going on. We really need to stretch. We need to, in some instances, be innovative, and especially when you look at the people. And I look at some of the clients that I've worked with, including our company. It's most companies were ahead of the curve that they jumped out there. One, take care of their people, their families, stabilize the infrastructure. Then two, getting out to their employees and to their clients and running their overall business operation. But if you look at some of the things that some companies that are out there, and even in the theme of HMG, the idea of embracing the opportunity for innovation or accelerating even your digital transformation. I was with one colleague who was talking about there were companies that were jumping on the cloud 5-10 years ago, really embracing it. And even now, over the last 3 years, if companies haven't embraced the cloud by now, they really need to jump on and accelerate it. But one of the pieces, speaking with Meredith, you look at the talent pool, and all too often, a lot of times companies get line of sight centric or looking where geographies are. And while in the cybersecurity space, I think all four of us would raise our hand, there's a shortage on talent for sure. But with this whole idea of going remote, it does open your eyes to, you don't necessarily need to be in a major city. But Meredith, what are some of the things you took a look at or are taking a look at in the midst of COVID when it comes to recruitment plans and really on the heels of what our executive search teams just told us about?
So it's something that we're still studying within our environment. I've been with Lilly for 2 years and relocated from another geography to work in Indianapolis, Indiana. And that's really kind of our norm for most of the staff that I have are centralized within Indiana. But we are really starting to take a look at our footprint. And now that we're in this space of remote working, do I now have the capability to be able to leverage geographies that are outside of the Indiana market where talent pools have not been really readily available to me? And I think that there is a ability for us to be able to pull and draw from those markets. So we really are doing some analyzing across our landscape to say for specific roles, especially when they're very critical, skilled roles that we have a hard time sourcing, how do I now look into these other geographies and possibly offer some level of flexible working or remote working that we really didn't embrace as much prior to COVID, but now that we have proven that we could send 20,000 people home and they can work and they can be effective and we're producing and delivering at a higher rate, how can we now leverage that moving forward with our sourcing model and staffing models moving forward? So I'm excited about the possibilities of who I can now employ now that we understand that we can work remotely.
No doubt expands our talent pool and options for sure when you can look outside of your geography, especially companies operating globally or having clients, customers, and businesses, different parts of the country and the world. As we continue moving forward, the future of securing the work, and I said earlier, in a blink of an eye, companies went from being on corporate sites to hundreds, thousands of employees, and kudos to a lot of the CIOs and CTOs that enabled that to happen. But it's up to a lot of CIOs, CISOs, including the ones here. We're the ones that need to go after that availability and make sure that things are going on and we're able to do these things in a secure manner and manage the risk exposures that all brings on. A lot of times things that are overlooked, not only the employees that are running operations, but our IT and security teams. And when I look at some of the investigations, the ransomware attacks that we've responded to, guess what? Even the IT and security operations are remote. And in many instances, and Sam, I know when we were speaking about that, different things, that it's not just the remote employee being productive, but how's our IT and security operations running, especially when you look at the spike in attacks that we talked about earlier. Sam, can you expand a little bit your thoughts on incident response and the new?
Yeah, so certainly, incident response is something that is one of the many areas I think that we've all had to take a look at over the course of the past few months with respect to not just security, but also business operations as well. From a global perspective, Gates has a fairly significant presence in Asia Pac and in China, and so at least from our perspective, I feel like we were a little better prepared, at least from a pandemic preparation perspective, to be able to respond to the events over the past few months. But globally, right, while we were well prepared in some parts of our business, I felt like there was an opportunity for us to be able to continue to grow and expand how we respond, right, to be able to continue our business functioning in a way that we needed to. As I said earlier, being an essential business, we did have to make sure that we were continuing to service our customers during these times, even though there were some slowdowns in certain industries that we service. There certainly were not in others. And so as a result, we had to make sure that we were continuing to keep up our ability to meet our customer demands to ensure that we were able to still produce product and make sure we were still moving the business forward. So when you think about the business operations side of it, a little bit different than the cyber side of it, where we also now need to look at and continue to look at how we are supporting incident response operations from a remote perspective. Now that you have people that are entirely remote, you don't have the opportunity to have kind of the in-person war room that you might have, during an incident where you have a bunch of people sitting together and trying to work out problems all, within a close proximity of each other. Now you have people you have to manage remotely, and you have to make sure that your incident response processes, quite frankly, are much tighter, because you want to make sure that you're managing that process in a way that people understand and are still following what their role is as part of that process as you proceed kind of through the chain of remediation, identification, containment of the actual incident. And that's a bit more difficult when you have people who are remote, because they may be more apt to kind of start going off and looking at other things, or trying to be helpful, trying to do the right thing, but aren't necessarily doing so in a way that's in alignment with your processes. And so from an incident response perspective, it is a bit of a challenge to make sure that you're still kind of herding all those folks together. And sometimes it takes a stronger personality, I would say, from an incident response management perspective, to ensure that people are staying on task and they're staying within the bounds of what you need them to do at that time.
For sure. Some interesting points there and words of wisdom. So thank you for that, Sam. I know we've spoken about what you and Meredith and the industry's done thus far, and Jeff, looking into the future, especially the theme of our session here, what do we do moving forward, securing the future of work? What are some of the things that we need to be doing as an industry? What are the special protections we need to put in place, and even some assumptions for that matter?
Yeah, and I think you hit on the key word, Rocco, which is assumptions. And so I think there's three basic underlying assumptions that at least that I'm operating off of, and I think a lot of us would, I hope, would agree with. But I think first and foremost, the one thing that has remained unchanged is our job is to safeguard the business. That doesn't change if it's last year, this year, or next year. And one of the things we need to continue to do is be brilliant on the basics. I know, this has already been brought up. Rocco mentioned this at the very beginning of the conversation, that while we may be seeing increased incidents, the vectors that those are being realized through are some of the same things we've been dealing with in the past. And so we can't give up on patching. We can't give up on currency. We can't give up on identity and access management. All those basic building blocks of any cybersecurity program we have to do as well as we possibly can, because that's going to be what carries us through times like this. The second assumption is really around, you hear a lot of people talk about the speed at which we're transforming, or the how everything has been accelerated. And I do not deny that. There are things that have been done in days or months that would normally take years. And so trying to stay up with that is important. I like to look at it in terms of velocity, which is speed in a direction. And if we're just looking at it from a perspective of speed, we may be going in multiple different directions, and we're not going to achieve the overall strategies that we're looking for. And so I think now more than ever is when we need to have not just a seat at the table. And that can be construed in a different way than I'm probably trying to articulate. What I'm trying to say is we need to be forging those relationships in a much more deepened level with our peers and our colleagues, whether it's on the business side or on the IT side, to make sure that we are part of that overall strategy so that we're all moving at the same speed in the same direction. The third part is what we've already talked about, is the assumption that the workforce has changed, not just from a location, but also the behaviors that we're starting to see developing over time, both good and bad, unfortunately. And I think that doesn't necessarily change, really getting back to my first assumption, which is as far as, some things remain unchanged. When it comes to the evolving workforce or the changing workforce, the location in which we work, it's still the same thing that we're protecting, which is our data. And so wherever our endpoint is, wherever our end user is, as we look at both the internal and the external threats, we still need to be laser focused on, it's 12 o'clock, do you know where your data is scenarios, so that we can make sure that we have all the appropriate mitigating controls in place to protect that data. And there's obviously a lot of pieces that go to that, but just getting back to some of those basics, even within this changing workforce, focusing on the things that matter most and protecting our data and safeguarding our business should be at the front of mind for everyone.
Great points. Thanks for that, Jeff. And you continue looking at some of the things you pointed out there. Jeff, I talked about innovation, and you talk about securing the workforce. In some instances, they overlap, and there's different technologies out there. There's different partners. Case in point, some of the sponsors here at HMG today. But one of the things, Meredith, you had said at the top, of our presentation was, looking at some of your strategic partners, even the vendors that you've relied on. I know when we were preparing, you had some points there, and nobody's immune to the pandemic. And what are some of the lessons learned, or even things that you're doing right now with some of your strategic partners, not only to help you take it to the next level, in some instances, maybe even reciprocating?
I think that we also can't make the assumption that our strategic partners are prepared or were prepared to move into this remote working environment. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons, that even though we were poised and ready to flip the switch and move into that environment, we found that some of our strategic partners in other geographies around the world were just not structured that way. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that our contracts didn't really allow for some of that remote working. So we put them in places where they could actually work in a centralized location. And now we're telling them we're going to disperse you to your home in geographies where they might not have strong Wi-Fi signals. They might not have security to be able to protect the endpoints that we're sending them with. And even making the assumption that our strategic partners have provided mobile devices for them to be able to leave the office to actually go to a home environment to work. So some of our partners actually had desktops. Well, we couldn't drag the desktop all the way to the home. So there were these logistical things that we hadn't really thought about as it related to even what we wrote in the contract. So we have a wonderful procurement organization. And so we have really taken a look at some of those things that we have placed within our contracts, and how do we give ourselves kind of a predetermined out if we have to do an exception to a contract term. To be able to move quickly, which we had to do in some of these instances. And then in some instances, you may have to, as an organization, be the bridge for your strategic partners, especially if they're supporting a large portion of your business. So if that means that you have to ship laptops to them because there's not the ability to get desktops home, or there's issues happening with shipping going into different countries, we had to be creative. And we had to make sure that our team members that were sitting in other parts of the world were able to still continue to do the work. So if that means we played the bridge role, we did. If that means we had to do some exceptions to contracts, we did. So you have to be really flexible when it comes to this, but don't make the assumptions. Don't make the assumptions that your vendors and your strategic partners have really thought through how to logistically handle a move to work from home quickly, because we learned that lesson. It was a lesson. We will be prepared if we ever have to do this again. So,
hey, Rocco, can I add something to that?
By all means, Sam, please jump in.
Yeah, so I'd say that the vendor supply chain challenge wasn't the only issue to deal with. There was also the internal potential supply chain challenge there as well, because like all organizations, we had a certain number of spare laptops that we have on hand. We have a fairly significant workforce who works out of our manufacturing facilities, and to Meredith's point a few moments ago, some of these folks, like plant managers, for example, only work on desktops, and so we had to very quickly more enable our workforce to be able to work mobile. A large percentage of our workforce already had that capability, but for the ones that did not, we had to make sure that we could get them online very quickly, because we had to very quickly move them from a situation where they were able to be productive within the plant environment that they were typically, or manufacturing facility environment they were typically used to working in, to now being able to work from home. And so, while we were scrambling to make sure that they had the capabilities to do that via laptops and other sorts of mechanisms, the unfortunate thing that we ran into was so was everybody else. And so while we were trying to utilize the supply that we had on hand as quickly as possible, we were running into some of the same supply chain challenges that others were running into, because we were also going to our suppliers trying to get additional laptops, trying to get additional machines. And so we were running into some challenges there just from the bottleneck that was occurring of the upstream partners that we were relying on that weren't able to meet the demand as quickly as we needed. Not just from a services perspective, but just from a hardware perspective.
Great points on that, both Meredith and Sam on that. But let's stay with you, Sam, because on that theme, again, we're talking about how we got from the last 6 months to now. Where do we go from here? And I think back in March, even for those of us with children or kids going back to school, I think it was a Band-Aid to get them through the spring. Everything will go away. Summer will come and go, and we're back to school. But guess what? This isn't going to be a 3 to 6 month deal, and we're in for this for the long haul. So while Meredith sounds like you have sometimes what pulled through a logistical nightmare shipping equipment around the world, how do we stabilize this? And even going forward, Sam, some of the points you had spoken about in our prep session that we've gotten here, we've stabilized, but really moving forward, how do we, from a cultural standpoint, move forward and really inject cyber hygiene into the way, for lack of a better term, how we're going to do this moving forward?
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think there's a few things there. We've talked a little bit about them already with shoring up incident response procedures. That is an area where we definitely need to make sure that we are able to continue to stay sharp as we continue to move into this more remote workforce environment. Make sure your contact lists are up to date, right? So not just the exercise of the plan, and make sure you're doing your tabletops. You obviously want to make sure you're well-versed in your plan before you actually get into a live fire situation where you're actually exercising the plan. So make sure your tabletops are current. Make sure that you have up-to-date contact lists within those plans, because again, you're not going to necessarily be able to walk to somebody's desk or be able to pull them into a conference room relatively quickly. You're going to have to make sure those contact lists are up to date so that you know how to contact people in the event that they're off shift or otherwise, to make sure that you can pull them in as you need to. Remote access, right, certainly is a big topic now, because people are coming in through VPNs and accessing systems in other ways that they were typically not used to accessing them when they were physically on the corporate network. And so making sure you have the capacity within your VPNs to handle the increased bandwidth, and make sure you have the capability to handle the increased bandwidth capabilities. I think we all suffered a little bit early on when we were trying to use some of the various teleconferencing services, and they all were having capacity issues because of the movement not only to remote work, but remote learning and all the other use cases that we're starting to now move to a remote environment. I think we all kind of realized the issues that were being put on, or the pressure that was being put on those providers, and some of the constraints that we had to deal with as part of that as well. So making sure that you have not only the remote capabilities and remote bandwidth, but we talked about supply chain too. Part of the security issue that potentially results from a supply chain issue is that if someone needs to work and they don't have the capability to do so because they don't have the hardware to be able to use, then what are they going to do? They're going to start using personal devices, which introduces an entirely different security challenge that you have to solve for. And so there's a lot of things that have kind of come about that I think we've had to learn over the past few months. The other thing I want to tack on here is security awareness. You talked a little bit about that as part of the intro to your question, Rocco, but one of the things that we've been doing internally is Now we have a pretty tight-knit security group in Denver, pretty tight-knit CISO group, and we talk a lot about some of the things we've been doing as part of our pandemic response. And it's been interesting to me because the spectrum of response has ranged everything from we're not doing anything different to we significantly stepped up our security awareness efforts. And to me, at least from where I sit, I think the right answer is to be doing more during this time because, again, you have people who are working remote, you have people who are working from home, they have many other different distractions now than, if you're sitting at your desk, it's easier to be a little more focused. When you're at home, you have lots of other distractions potentially around you, especially as we were talking about a moment ago from schooling, right? Remote schooling and remote learning. You may have other distractions around you just from an environmental perspective. And so from my standpoint, it's been increasingly important to make sure that we are not only increasing our security awareness efforts throughout the organization, but also targeting very specific parts of the organization that are more specifically targeted for cyber attack, like your finance, your legal, and your HR organizations, because they are the most frequently phished targeted groups within your organization. And during these times especially, you want to make sure that they are aware of what the new variants are that we've been seeing, right, as part of some of the threats are. So we haven't seen anything necessarily, I would say, revolutionary from a threat perspective, but it has been evolutionary in that we have seen the same types of threats that we've seen in the past, the same types of lures we've seen in the past, now leveraging COVID-19 as a means to be able to get people to try to click on links, open attachments, respond to emails, et cetera. And so to me, security awareness is a big part of the efforts that we need to do to secure that remote workforce as well, to make sure they're aware of what those threats look like so they know how to respond when they see one.
Great, thanks, Sam. And Meredith, I think you may have had a quick point there.
Well, I did, but I think Sam said it perfectly around the whole training and awareness piece. That was the part that I was going to add on. Sometimes we look at these concerns that we may have from a security standpoint as only technology solutions, and we cannot underestimate the people component of what we do. And so some of the things that we did at Lilly was step up our training and awareness. We did targeted training and awareness, but in a different category for us. These were with our scientists and our researchers who are actually participating in COVID research. And so they were more of a targeted audience for us. And so that's who we went after in terms of training. So I think that we have to always couple that, especially as we continue to push people to the home to work, because we have to keep that in the forefront of their minds. It's typically not there. When they're working in your home environment, sometimes you may forget. So how do you continuously push messages, videos, content, reminders, emails? I mean, different modes of trying to keep that in the forefront of folks' minds. We're going to have to continually do that different in the future.
Well said.
Great points on that front. And I just have one more quick one. I see Hunter jumping out there. We've spoken about this whole global pandemic. Meredith, you shipping equipment around the world, and likewise, Sam. One piece, Jeff, not everyone is a global organization. In a lot of instances, we have the small and mid-sized businesses. How do we help them tackle some of the challenges that they're up against with this remote work from home type of situation?
No, and I do have the luxury of being part of a Fortune 100 company, so I have a nice backstop, which is very helpful. However, we do operate in a very segmented environment. So what's downstream of the firewalls is our scope of responsibility. So we get to see, or at least this is new to me over the past couple of years, is learning what it's like to be in a small to medium-sized business. And just to kind of quickly tie back into what was just mentioned, one of the absolute best tools we have, and we should never underestimate the effectiveness, is a security awareness program. And it can be free. You can certainly do a lot more with a small investment, but you could get away with a very minor investment to improve this, security awareness program overall. But the one example that I would like to use is, I kind of look at it from the perspective of you can't have optimization without automation. And so when you're dealing with a small staff, you're looking for the return on the investment for whatever cybersecurity tools you're looking at. And so for us, one of the things that we certainly went out into the market and looked for pre-COVID-19, which we were very thankful that the timing worked out very well for us, that we were in a position where we had this implemented, but looking at systems that help identify anomalous behavior through machine learning, AI. I mean, I know it's all the buzzwords that come out there, but actually having effective systems that are lower cost, that help automate the process of that protection, detection, responding, so that we don't have to necessarily rely on a number of humans or number of security analysts. We still need them, and we absolutely have them because they're incredibly important, but I don't necessarily have to have an army of people there to support that. But what I can do is rely on fine-tuning those systems to identify what's going on out there. And there's some very unique solutions out in the workplace today that don't cost an arm and a leg. And that's what I would encourage people to do, is ramp up your training awareness program, look for those types of automation areas where you can make a minor investment and get a lot out of it. And really the second piece, or the third piece, is when it comes to automation, it doesn't have to be a tool, it can be a process. And making sure that everyone on the team knows what that process is repeatable, that gets us back to optimization.
Great, thanks for that, Jeff. Hunter, I know we're out of time, but thanks for letting us present here, and thank you again to our panelists. Awesome job.
Thank you.
Rocco, great job.
Thanks, Rocco.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Great job. And Sam, thank you very much. Excellent. So folks, that's a wrap for today in terms of the Core Summit. A big shout out and thanks to our partners for the event, RingCentral, T-Mobile for Business, BetterCloud, Appian, Zerto. Really appreciate it. SnapLogic, and really appreciate your support in the event. On to our recognition program. This is something we've been working on for over a decade here at HMG. Again, we've recognized over 200 tech leaders across North America and into Europe. And for this market, we have two individuals that we wanted to call out and recognize for different aspects of achievement and leadership. First up is just recently on this panel, Sam Masiello, the CISO for Gates Corporation. Sam has been fighting internet pollution for over 25 years. Sam says he's proud to have worked with email security for so long, watching its evolution to a more advanced and nefarious phishing strategies. Sam is responsible for Gates' data security, risk, and global compliance initiatives. Through his career, Sam has served as CISO and head of application security and head of security research, working with Groupon, ReturnPath, and McAfee, and currently holds a director-at-large seat for the Coalition Against Unsolicited Commercial Email, otherwise known as, I guess, SOS, yes. The internet's oldest and largest email and end-user advocacy organization. A big shout out to Sam and his 25 years plus of thought leadership and being a CISO. Sam, great to have you on the program today, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Hunter, and thank you to yourself and HMG and all those who are responsible for the nomination process. It's really quite an honor, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Really thoughtful comments and remarks on today's panel. Really appreciate your contribution to the HMG platform and network and community, and looking forward to many more of these in the future. Hopefully you can post this on your LinkedIn as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Next up, we have Margaret Sharapova. Margaret's the CIO of Incitec Pivot Limited. Margaret's being recognized for exhibiting excellence in ensuring IPL's enterprise technology runs effectively, scales globally for the future, and provides the platform for customer product technologies that ensure IPL's strategic performance and growth. Margot's extensive experience in managing large and complex multi-site IT transformation is a credit and a thanks to an over 20-year executive career, including C-suite roles at AECOM and GE, both amazing companies. Margaret brings a passion to the table 24 hours a day. That's interesting. From exploring the heights of Kilimanjaro, that's interesting, to blazing new trails, skiing with HMG Ventures, separate story, to blazing new trails by leveraging technology to engage clients and consumers. Congratulations, Margaret. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Hunter, and thanks for the recognition. I was just sitting here thinking, I think I came to my first HMG conference 10 years ago in the New York market, because folks said, hey, there are lots of conferences out there, Margaret, But HMG really is a class act as far as the caliber of the speakers, the thoughts, the vendor partners. And it's just been a real pleasure to see how HMG has grown and has helped me be a better CIO at the same time with the works you've been doing with venture capital companies, more of the online webinars, thinking about how people manage their careers and think differently about technology. So I always find a really good return on investment spending time with the HMG group. Thanks.
Thanks, Margaret. And then appreciate the recognition. Thoughts about, career changes or pivots in your career, and what were the major breaks? Because everyone starts out at a certain level, and then all of a sudden you hit a pivot or you got a break, and you've had a great run now.
I'd say the key thing for me is I'm that classic story of someone who took a risk on a role other people didn't want. So often you kind of ask yourself, you think about all the things that could go wrong, but then who else? Why not step in and take that chance in a struggling program or initiative, maybe something with a lot of visibility. And I think with a mixture of hard work and some luck, being able to deliver those things is what really catapulted me to the C-suite.
Excellent. Congratulations. I'm really proud to have you part of this program and part of this recognition program, and also consider you a great friend. And also give you the heads up, we do have a Women in Technology Summit that we're in the early stages of planning for late October.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Again, what a great summit, great program. Big shout out to Colorado Sim and our other friends and partners. Until next time, stay tuned in and stay well, and look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks.